It's my honor and privilege to be speaking for all of you today. It's a homecoming for me of sorts. As was mentioned earlier, this is my home college. I grew up here in Anchorage. I was a student here from 1991 to 1995, and also from 2000 to 2005 for my master's. And then every time I come to the Philippines, I always visit this college. First of all, I'd like also to thank our dean for having me as a visiting professor. And I thank Hood College for wholeheartedly accepting me for a year of engagement here in the university as well. So thank you for that. Today I'm going to discuss research very close to my heart, and the title of my presentation for today is The Current State of Philippine Corrections, Agenda for Social Innovation, Research and Advocacy. Okay? So here's the presentation. I was given 1 hour of presentation for today, so I hope I will not bore you with such long hours. Okay? But I'm going to divide my presentation into 4 parts. Okay? First, I'm going to share about my personal history as an advocate scholar. I do believe that people will understand better, okay, the things that I'm going through if you know where I come from. Okay? So I'm going to integrate here some of my personal narrative, history, and biography. Okay? Second, I'm going to discuss my research, okay? And this will be the bulk of my presentation, wherein I'm going to discuss the current state of the Philippine corrections, utilizing the theory, okay? And describing the research methods that I've done through the years, which is basically intertwined with my personal history, and also some of the key findings, okay? Things that we learned only from the Philippines that could be used to elaborate discussions on Philippine corrections worldwide. A third component of my presentation is social innovation. Okay? So if we already understood the current state of Philippine corrections, what could be done? Okay? I do believe that as a researcher, we are also advocates. Okay? We are also reformers. Okay? But reformers with an empirical agenda. So here I'm going to discuss what I call integrated correctional management. Okay? And its training component that entails this management. And finally, the implementation, monitoring, and assessment component of this program. And then the research component, the design of this research, okay? Specifically the baselines and indicators, and finally some aspects about needs, process, and outcome and impact evaluations. The fourth component will be my visions for the future, which is basically an evidence-based advocacy. Okay, so let's start. So let me begin by sharing my personal history as an advocate scholar. Okay? Many of you might have heard already about this incarceration, okay, where I spent 7 years in Quezon City Jail, okay, one of the most crowded jails in the Philippines. Okay? I was a victim of false accusation, okay, and unfortunately the victim also came from this college, a good friend of mine. His name is Dennis Venturina. Okay? Everybody knew him from this college by then. Okay? It was a prolonged trial, and eventually I was found innocent, not guilty. Okay? But the good thing is, while I was inside the prison, okay, I volunteered in many facets of jail administration. I became an inmate teacher, so I learned firsthand why some inmates commit crime. I became a trustee in the inmates record system. If you know Ma'am Kublos, okay, she was my officer, okay, and because of this, I was able jail officers in prison management. I became an inmate paralegal coordinator. That gave me also an opportunity to understand why cases of inmates took a while in order to be processed. And when the UP Pahinumad, as still its volunteer program, many from our college go there, okay? And so I became a volunteer there as well, the resident Pahinumad volunteer. And on my 4th year of stay in Quezon City Jail, I became a mayor de mayores. Okay? Then you say the top inmate leader. Okay? And so I managed the Sputnik, the Commando, the Bahala, and the Sige-Sige gangs. Okay? And because of this, I was able to see firsthand the intricacies of jail management. I talked to the wardens on how to manage the conflicts within. Okay? This, what I would say, inadvertent experience provided me with a research methodology. I learned and find out that it's called ethnography. Okay? And here, I became a participant observer, 7 years of experience. Okay? And when you say phenomenology, meaning to say you have to live the experience, you cannot understand what an inmate means if you haven't been an inmate. So pag sinabi buryong, alam mo ang ibig sabihin ng buryong, boredom. Okay? And so I was able to access inside perspectives. What makes an inmate cry, for example, kapag nakikita niya ang dalaw na pumapasok. Okay? So these are phenomenological experience undergoing through the process. Or if you look at Virgilio Enriquez, he calls this pakikipabuhay. You have to live and be part of a system to understand it. Upon my release, I became an advocate. Okay? I told myself that wala na dapat makulong na katulad ko na walang kasalanan. One of the things that I did was a simplified inmate record system, which now became the National Inmate Monitoring System, wherein the record files of the inmates had been computerized. Okay? So this was one of the innovations that I was able to contribute upon release. Also the detainee notebook and pre-trial detention. By having these advocacies, I was able to talk with other volunteers, which provided me another access to their perspectives. Okay? So here, doing prison research is very important only when you have the trust and confidence of the gatekeepers. Okay? Bihirang-bihira pumasok sa loob ng kulungan at makaltal mo ang impormasyon. Not if the inmates don't rush you. Okay? But having been there, having had connections there, I was able to access these gatekeepers. Okay? Now, having that, I was able to write a book about my prison experience, okay, which was used by the United Nations and the Supreme Court for its wide-ranging program for judicial reforms. Because of that as well, I was able to get a scholarship through Fulbright, and they sent me abroad. Okay? And so I was able to finish my master's and PhD in criminology and criminal justice. Ngayon, bakit ito sinasabi? Okay? Well, because of this education, I was able to read and learn about Western theories about crime and criminal justice, and also learn about their Western research methods. Now, the problem is, are the Western thinking applicable to the Philippine case or not, given the differences in resources and cultural sensibilities? The answer is no. Okay? That's why when I do my research, it's always on the side of the, what we call this, the colonized. Okay? People who have weaker voices, people who are subjugated. And the only research methodology that will be most applicable to this is what we call participatory action research. Okay? And so here are all the things that I'm doing and currently doing in order to advance my advocacy. Okay? So, let's now go to the second portion. which is the more interesting one, the current state of Philippine corrections. But before we do that, okay, Alan, if you could give them the paper sheet, please. Let's have one small activity called participatory action research. Okay? This is called Take Care and Share, and I'm going to give you an idea card and try to answer these questions. Okay? One, when you think of corrections, okay, meaning to say prisons, penitentiaries, jails, detention centers, holding cells, what images come to your mind? Okay, so let me put it, try to write it down. Second, okay, what are the sources of those images? And then third, okay, what can be done to improve Philippine corrections? Okay? So again, participatory action research suggests that there's no one single truth. Okay? So these are your truths. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we are going to gather these truths, multiple truths, and come up with a holistic understanding of the prison system. Okay? I'm going to give you 3 minutes to answer those questions. Person nearest you and share your answer to that person. Okay? Discuss between the two of you or three of you. Kung wala kayong kapares. Okay? 1 more minute. Alan, can you collect all their ID cards? Okay. Okay, collect na lang po. Okay, so now, what we're going to do is let's process the information. Okay. Who wants to share their answers? So when you think of prisons in the Philippine context, what comes into your mind? Sinong volunteer? Yes, ma'am? Overcrowding. Ilan ba kayo may ganung sense? It's overcrowded. Very good. Congested. Okay. Saan po ang sources ng information na ito? Media. Personal observations. Okay. Personal experience. Sino sa inyo ang nakadalaw na ng tulungan? Sino sa inyo ang nanggaling sa tulungan? Nakatira sa tulungan. Sa Bilibid. Okay? Okay, Alan, if you could give that to me. Now, one final question is, ito medyo mahirap, ano pwede gawin? What can be done to improve Philippine That's all correct? Ano pa? Ha? Programs and services inside the jails and outside.
Because the main problem is that when they're inside the center or chains, they do not have anything to do at all.
That's right.
When they're going out, since they do not know what to do, they will go back to the same.
Very good. Okay, very good. So, ang sinasabi ko dito is lack of programs na nagiging dahilan ng kawalan ng reformation programs which later on now is a big problem upon release. Okay, hello? Okay, so all of the things that you have provided are correct. Okay? The only problem is sa book po siya, right? They are coming from different areas. Overcrowding here, legislation over there, programming over here, post-release. What we need is an integrative framework of understanding Philippine corrections. That's what's missing right now. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is to start with the current state of Philippine corrections. Okay? Nung una kong pinag-aralan ng Philippine corrections, the number one problem is there's not much literature on it. Walang nasusulat. Okay? At yun siguro ang experience natin lahat. Very little is written. Okay? So the first thing I did was to look at Western perspectives on prison management. Ano ba tingin ng ibang scholars on ways of managing the prison? Okay? So what I'm going to do today here is discuss a little bit of this. So first is the notion of deprivation theory. Have you heard of this theory? Okay? This was offered by Sykes in 1958 when he studied the New Jersey maximum security prison. Okay? Basically saying that prisons are areas of deprivation. They are deprived of goods and services. They are deprived of heterosexual relationships. They are deprived of their freedom. Because of these deprivations, which he calls pain of imprisonment, inmates have coping mechanisms. So for example, because of lack of heterosexual relationships, in most prisons, there is what we call homosexual relations. Because of lack of goods and services, in most prisons, there is what we call an underground economy. Okay? So, according to Sykes, there is this equilibrium that happens between the structures of imprisonment and the coping mechanisms of the inmates. Another perspective, when you look at Western prisons, is the notion of importation theory. And this was suggested by Irwin and Tracy, saying that, no, it's not only the deprivation that matters. What also matters is what inmates bring inside the prison. For example, if inmates are gang members or gang members from the outside, when they go inside, they will organize gangs. If they are violent outside, when they are inside the prison, they will also be violent, regardless of the deprivation inside the jail or prison. Okay? So that's the second perspective. The third perspective is what we call the management model. And this was introduced in 1987 by DeMillo, saying that, no, it's not only the deprivation that matters, it's not what the inmates bring, but it's how managers, wardens, superintendents, for example, manage the prison that matters. Kung matino ang warden, kahit anong level of deprivation niya, ano man ang galing ng inmate, hindi yung mahalaga. What matters is the warden. If he has strong leadership, then it will be more peaceful. Okay? The fourth, which was actually much earlier, is the notion of personalization. Have you heard of this term? Meaning to say, this deprivation and what inmates bring and how the jail are managed translates into what we call prison culture. Okay? The norms, values inside the prison. Every prison has this prison community. And when an inmate arrives, they are prisonized. They accept the values, the norms of the prison. Kung dati-dati totoy na totoy, pag nakulong, aba, mamumulungan na yan. Okay? That's the perspective of Weimar in 1938. And currently, these four perspectives are integrated in order to understand a prison life. So kung punta ka ng Quezon City Jail, tingnan mo ang kanyang level of deprivation. Tingnan mo ang mga inmates na pumapasok. Tingnan mo kung gaano magaling si warden at kung ano ang ginagawa ng inmates in order to introduce the culture to the new inmates. Ang tawag namin bagito. Okay? And so here is the perspective, the theoretical perspective. Okay? This is the personalization process. This is the prison community, which has its prison code. Okay? Bawat tulungan may batas ng tulungan, rules of behavior. There's a lingo, limbawa, buryo, rancho, kakosa, okay, burao. Okay? When I was in jail, I documented 1,600 words unique to Quezon City Jail. Okay? There's an inmate structure. There's a mayor, a vice mayor, a bastonero, a culturero. Okay? The gang leadership. Now, this prison community is affected by levels of deprivation, by what the inmate brings inside the prison. For example, the criminogenic orientations, okay? And the levels of administrative and security management styles. Okay? All of these interact in order to affect the prison community. Okay? Is that a good Western perspective? Ito ang ginagamit ng Western scholars in understanding the prison system. Having this as a framework, what are the implications? Okay? What are the policy implications you think? One is, well, they find that if prisons are highly deprived, it becomes highly violent. And so what they do is remove the deprivation, elevate the prison conditions, right? That's why they have very good cells. Okay, one is one. If you go to French, right? Cells there are within acceptable standards. Okay? Second, because they know that inmates contaminate each other, right? Because of the prison culture that's happening, they have now what they call classified inmates. So the high-risk offenders should be classified, segregated from the low-risk and zero-risk offenders. Why? Because if you mingle them together, what happens? Yung snatcher, magkaya kidnapper na yan. Okay? So you have to classify the inmates. And we were able to do that properly in the United States. And finally, because of the strong role of government, okay, they emphasize what they call risk management. Okay? They understand what's your criminogenic background and see whether you're going to recidivate soon. And if you have higher recidivism tendencies, the more program will be offered to you. Cognitive change, behavioral change, therapeutic change. Okay? Kung titignan mo, it's very good in paper. Supposedly, wala nang problema in Western prisons, right? Because they are doing all of this. But, sadly, it's a huge problem that they are encountering. Okay? Why? U.S. prisons, compared to us here in the Philippines, they are safe, they are boring, and they are sterile. If ever ako papasok ako sa U.S. prisons, okay, despite the cleanliness, despite conditions that they have, people there becomes mentally challenged. Why? Because there's no human contact. Hindi sila kinakausap ng mga empleyado at bawal ang pag-uusap ng mga inmates. Unlike here, that we have a very vibrant community. Secondly, non-participation in governance. Okay? Inmates in Western prisons don't participate in governance. Okay? In the Philippines, as you will see later on, we have a very active role in governance of our prisons. Especially in the United States, they have a very high recidivism rate. Do you know the recidivism rate in the United States? It's 60%. Some states 70%. Meaning to say, out of 100 who are released from jails or prisons, 60 to 70 come back within 3 years upon release. Unfortunately, in the Philippines, we don't have comparable data to compare. So we have to collect our recidivism data. Okay. Again, the question is, okay, are these theories, are these learnings that we have in the United States applicable in the Philippine setting? Can we use it to understand our prison conditions here? Especially that we have vast differences in resources and cultural sensibilities. What do you think? My answer here is probably yes, but we need to tweak it a little. Okay? In the Philippines, this is what is more applicable. This is the theory, the theoretical perspective that I'm utilizing. Okay? Look at this. Here is the structural conditions. Okay? And in the United States, when you say structural conditions, it's the deprivation faced by inmates only. In the Philippines, it's a deprivation faced not only by inmates, but by prison guards as well, by jail guards as well. Why? Lack of personnel. Okay? In the Philippines, ideally there should be one jail guard for every 7 inmates. That's based on our Bucor Modernization Law and BJMP law. Below the current ratio. In some jails, it's 1:80. In other jails, it's 1:120. Okay? And so our prison guards are extremely stretched. Okay? Structural conditions, overcrowding, it is not kanina. Okay? Now, these structural conditions now translates into what we call organizational processes and culture within the prison. And culture here are defined as cognitive scripts that justify behavior. For example, masyadong siksikan ang selda, crowded, there's no ventilation. The coping mechanism now is to bring an electric fan. Okay? And the cultural script will be, okay lang magpasok ng electric fan for humanitarian considerations. Sir, gusto naman, mamamatay na ako sa init. Kaya din naman ipasok na itong electric fan ko. Now, at the beginning, it was humanitarian considerations. Sa susunod, nagiging humanitarian consideration. We got that? Okay? Pera-pera ang kapalit. Okay? Magpasok mo ng electric fan, pero alam mo na ang kapalit. Okay? Which translates now into different outcomes. Okay? So, remember this, because this is the perspective, the theoretical framework that I'm going to utilize in integrating all the things that you have mentioned earlier, also coupled with my 20 years of experience in prison research. Okay, so this is the theory. Now, of course, there's an interaction effects through time. Okay? Ibig sabihin, kahit na nabago ng structural conditions, okay? Kung kung ang kultura ay nandyan na, for example, nagdagdag ka ng empleyado, nagtaas ka ng sahod, pero burakot pa rin yung mga empleyado, useless yung pagsaas ng sahod. Okay? So you have to change structures, culture, and organizational process all at the same time. Sabay-sabay. So, let's go to the next phase, which is the research methods. Okay? As I told you a while ago, it's so hard to penetrate prison culture, right? Kayo na galing sa kulungan, ang hirap pumasok. Okay? But because of my personal biography, okay, I was able to turn it around and utilize it as a form of autoethnography. Okay? And my continuing access, okay, translated into what we call participant observation. So every time pumapasok ko sa kulungan, okay, I was able to access new information. Okay? Also, mag-ipag-usap or what we call intensive interviews. So I utilize some protocol, okay, guided by Western theory, okay, in order to access or in order to frame the right questions. Okay. And in the Philippines, okay, there are research tools, okay, that are more appropriate. Psychology Filipino by Enriquez is a very fruitful one for you researchers. He calls it patanong-tanong. Okay? Kumusta po kayo? Ano po ang nangyari? Okay? Ipaliwanag niyo sa akin bakit mayroong bakery dito sa loob ng kulungan. Ipaliwanag niyo sa akin saan galing itong basketball court po ninyo. Okay? Patanong-tanong. And from there you get a lot of information. Okay? However, there are also limitations, and so you fall back to Western methods like surveys. Okay? Mayroon din naman halaga ang mga ito, and documentary reviews. Okay? The second portion is access. Okay? Because of my continuing engagement, at mayroon pa akong mga kasama sa loob ng kulungan na na-convict, okay? So they are in Muntinlupa, I was able to access those information. Okay? However, through the prison officers, lagi sila nagdududa rin sa akin. Sino ba itong si Raymond dating inmate? Okay? But because of the integrity I have developed through the years, na hindi ako antagonistic sa kanila, and also the trainings that I conducted for them, I was able to get their side as well. Okay? Which complemented the perspective of the inmates. And then, through my advocacy work, okay, I was able to access perspective from volunteers. Now, having all of these, how do you analyze data? For those of you who are research buffs, okay? So I have narratives. If I have long interviews, I take them down, okay, transcribe them, and use thematic analysis. Okay, through a software called NVivo. If you are willing to learn more about that, I will show you that. And we have what we call open and actual coding. Okay? Now, the very difficult portion here is how do I manage my research identity? For example, minsan lumadalaw ko sa loob ng tulungan, dinadalaw ko yung mga kaibigan ko na katulong, and they would fish information. Hey, anong sinabi ng director? Okay? Because they knew that I had a long discussions with the director. Okay? So here, I am very careful in protecting the identity of my participants. And I'm making sure that the information I got from one sector will not be divulged in another sector. I will maging source of conflict. Ang tawag ko noon ay bundulan. Okay? Bundol sa loob ng tulangan. Okay? And so I always maintain confidentiality of information and ethical conduct of research. Okay? It's my duty as a researcher to follow these protocols. Okay? And I can also share you some of the trainings that I've been part of in this area. Okay. Na yung pinaka-importante. So, what are my findings? What do we know about prisons? So let's look at the structural conditions. The number one part. Have you seen this picture before? Okay. I made it blurred because I don't want to show the faces of my participants. Okay. But this is a cell, an ordinary cell in Quezon City Jail. Okay. This is good for 20 inmates, as big as this. But at that moment, they have 180 inmates. Ito naman sa gabi. Okay? Ideally, one inmate should be provided one bed bunk. Currently, 95% of inmates nationwide are without bed bunks. 5% ang may tarima at may kubol. Okay? Most of the inmates natutulog dito sa malamig na sahig. Most of the facilities are outmoded and outdated, especially in far-flung jails and prisons. Okay? So for example, this is a kitchen. Okay? And inmates cook their food here. Kaya nung ko yung nagkaroon ng participatory research in Quezon City Jail before, baboy ang pagkain, baboy pa ang pagkaluto. Unfortunately, okay, these are our infirmaries. Okay? Most jails in the Philippines and prisons in the Philippines do not have standard medical facilities. In fact, 3 to 5 inmates die every month because of suffocation, heart disease. Kaya ang kanilang kasabihan doon, gumalaw-gumalaw para wag pumanaw. Because that's what happened inside these jails. Okay? The budget for food had increased from 35 pesos per day to 50 pesos per day now. Okay? Is that enough? Even if you are economical, okay, that's still not enough. That's 45 cents per day per inmate, okay, in terms of US dollars. Again, this is another picture, okay, where inmates' cells are overflowing. Okay? Imagine this under a 40-degree heat temperature or 106-degree Fahrenheit. Okay? Ang init, right? But these are also very common in our jails. This is a female dormitory in Quezon City. Okay? Quezon City has 800 inmates. Okay? It's good for 200 inmates, so that's 400% over congestion. And this is for a youth dorm. Okay? And youth dorms, unfortunately, are as equally overcrowded, undermanned, and congested. Okay, so let's look at the structural conditions for personnel. Okay, this is a good friend of mine. I don't know if you know him. His name is Tata Quaresma. Okay, he gave me permission to use this picture. Okay, and he's an escort. Ideally, an escort must be one inmate plus 2 jail guards. Okay, 2 jail guards for every 1 inmate. Or 5 inmates, 6 jail guards. Okay, so 1 is to 1 plus 1. In reality, escort is 1 is to 20. 1 jail guard, 20 inmates. Sa labas. Kung isa tumakas, anong gagawin mo? Habulin mo yung isa, magdasal ka na lang. Ano yung magdasal mo? Na siya ay may piyansa. Para pag nakatakas siya, ikaw magpapayal ng piyansa niya. Para hindi lumabas na nakatakas siya. Okay? Unfortunately, Mr. Prosecutor, sir, that's the condition. Marami sa mga inmate na tumakas, officially, ang pinapalabas, nakapagpiyansa. So that they will not be held negligent. Okay. Here is the custodial ratio. Supposedly 1 is to 7. In reality, custodial ratio in prisons, especially in the Bucor, is 1 is to 128. So kahit Superman ka, sabi ni Warden, hindi mo mabantayan lahat ng inmates. And here is a bus, okay, that used to transport inmates to a court. Okay? So isipin mo, sa umaga, ang pagkain mo ay dilis. Sa gabi, hindi ka nakatulog dahil sobrang siksikan. Now you have a hearing, and you will be transported in a bus as overcrowded. What happens when you are inside the court hearing? Maraming inmates, aamin na lang ng kanilang kaso para matapos na lahat. Why? Because they have stayed in jail anyway for so long. Okay? One of my favorite pictures, and when I show this to American audience, they will not believe it. Why? Kasi katulungan na handcuffs, so anong ginawa? Kumuha ng straw at tinali ang ibang kamay. Kaya ang number one rule, bawal mag-sigarilyo. Bakit? Kasi pag nag-sigarilyo, makasunugin, makatakas. Okay? So, given these realities, how do Filipino inmates cope with the conditions? Okay? Western coping, kung sa Amerika nangyari yan, these will be considered human rights violations. There will be court orders. Okay? The court will automatically take order and put a jail or prison in what they call consent decrees. Okay? And as long as the prisons are not reformed, okay, the court will not relinquish authority, or they will ask the prisons to be closed and release all the inmates. In the Philippines, hindi nangyayari yan. Okay? Filipino inmates are voiceless. They are powerless. Okay? And so what do we have? We have what I call an indigenous coping mechanism. Okay? A tungkol structure. Naalala yung mga bahay sa lipahan? Malapit ng mga bulog, tumba, ano ginagawa natin? We put tungkol, right? So we have a lot of tungkol structures inside the jails and prisons. What are those? Because of lack of personnel, we have now what we call the inmate structure. Okay? So, imagine this is a cell of 100 inmates. In every cell now, there will be what we call a mayor, this one, okay, a vice mayor, a bastonero, culturero, and other officers. Okay? In this cell, there are 83 inmates. At may pondo siya, 3,459 pesos, where it comes from the VIP inmates, or very important preso. Ayan, narinig niyo na ba yun? May VIP, very important preso. The buyonero, galing salitang buyon. Buyon is restroom, CR. Okay? If you are a buyonero, you are a cleaner of a CR. Okay? See, this is the prison officer. Okay? This is the inmate culturero. This is the head counting. Without the inmate culturero, the inmate officer, the prison guard will never know kung ilan ang inmates na nasa selda at brigada. Okay? And so, inmate cultureros have what we call custodial functions. Okay? Only in the Philippines, where you will ever see an inmate handling the keys. This was in Iwaki. In Iwaki, inmate trustees control the gate. And only those inmates, Filipino inmates, who you see na kapag dentist sila sa laya, pag sa loob, dentist pa rin sila. Pag lawyer sila sa laya, sa loob, lawyer pa rin sila. That's why when I was inside the jail, they said, "Uy, Raymond, UP ka pala. Bigat mo, baka pwede kang magturo." Eh, nagturo ko, naging teacher Raymond din ako. Eh, mayroon akong paranigan, naging attorney Raymond din ako sa loob. Okay? So, in the Philippines, because of lack of personnel, we utilize systematically become part of jail administration and prison administration. Okay? That's our model of shared governance. Because of lack of resources, we rely extensively on outsiders. Here are NGOs giving palakad. Okay? Palakad are yung mga pagkain na pinapasok sa loob. And because of this, families of inmates can stay within the prisons. Okay? Yung mga anak, ina-allow na mag-stay. Okay? Minsan nag-overnight. Minsan nag-overnight isang buwan. Minsan ayaw na umuwi. Doon na lumalaki sa loob ng tulungan. Because of lack of resources, okay, each cell has its own money-making scheme. Okay? So, pondo ng brigada, calling. Alam niyo yung calling? Alam yung kosa ko eh. Galing loob eh. Calling means, kapag may dalaw ka, kukulingan ka. The idea is, your visitor must have money, so every time you are visited, you are to contribute in the calling funds. Okay? Calling. Okay? We have tax for vendors. May mga nagtitinda, nagbabayad sila ng tax. Palakpak. Okay? Palakpak means, it says, every Saturday, inmates who are being convicted are transferred to Muntinlupa. So the cell, they will gather, okay, and they will dance around palakpak. Okay? And those who cannot give money, okay, will be the ones dancing. Okay? So yun po, yung pera naman, gamitin pabaon para dun sa mga na-convict papuntang Muntinlupa. That's why it's called palakpak. And then VIP and other forms of money making. Now, gastos ng brigada. Where, saan naman nila ginagastos? Where do they use the funds? Okay? So for example here, gamot. When an inmates get sick, hindi sila pumupunta kay Ward at kay Doktor. Kanina sila pumupunta? Sa mayores. Inilang na sila ng reseta kay Doktor, pero bibigay nila kay Ward kay Mayor ang reseta. Ang Mayor ang obligadong bumili ng gamot para sa inmate na may sakit. Tama ba? Mali. Okay? That's our coping mechanism. So look at this. This is an inmate, okay? Mayroon siyang pera. He operated a business inside. Okay? In-employ niya itong dalawang inmate. So now the relationship is client-capitalist relationship. Ito naman ang ordinary inmates. Okay? In the Philippines, instead of an underground economy, if you go to prisons, we have an above-ground economy. Okay? Talipa pa. And so, inmates, kahit nakakulong sila, they make money and send this to their families. They can send their families to college. Okay? Marami akong nakita mga inmates na paaral nila, anak nila sa Lasal, sa Ateneo, sa UP. Okay? And kung marunong kang dumisiharte, okay, you can start a business. So this guy, sa Laya, shoemaker, shoe repairer siya. Nung nasa loob, nagtayo rin siya ng shoe repair shop sa loob ng tulungan. Okay? Now, because of this, you need to have a very intricate inmate rules and regulations. So every cell, they have what we call Magna Carta. Batas ng cell na tama. Okay? Igala ang mga empleyado, lalo na ang mga linungkulan. Bawal maging balatuba sa gamit. Magbigay galang sa lahat ng dalaw. Memoryado po ba hanggang na yun ang aming mga patakaran sa selda. Okay? There are 20 of those. Okay? And because of this, there's also a labor relationship. So itong inmate na ito, lalaki, ay ginagamit niya ang labor ng mga ibang inmates na walang pera. And this is the VIP inmate, okay, providing food for the buyoneros. And if you see, there's a very intricate language system inside the cell. There's the mayor, mayores, jury, bastonero, advisor, lineman, coordinator, asintado. Asintado is the bodyguard. Okay? Bantay pinto, buyonero, mahinarya, runner, patala, polling. Okay? When I was in Quezon City, I documented 360 words pertaining to roles of inmates. gangs comprise only 3% of inmate population in the United States. In the Philippines, it's the norm, 80%. In Muntinlupa, in the maximum, 95%. So, given these structural conditions and organizational coping, okay, what are now the organizational impact? Paano mababago ang pamamalakad ng kulungan? Okay? Look at this. Okay? We have what we call now the Philippines Prison Shared Governance Model. And it has admittedly good short-term effects, but bad long-term effects. Okay? And I was able to document all of this. Let's look at it. If you look at inmate-officer relationship, there's no delineation. Okay? So this guy is the prison guard. Okay? These are the children who lives inside the cells. Okay? And as long as the inmates follow these guards' rules, okay, he will let the children live with them. Does that make sense? So it's a give and take relationship. Okay? So it becomes a padrino relationship. Okay? And it becomes very particularistic. Itong guard nito, okay, will allow inmates to get out of the cell only when they come to his bidding. Pag sumusunod sila sa kanyang patakaran. Kung hindi, peryado ka, padlang ka. Okay? And so it's very particularistic, it's patron-client based. The good effect is that, of course, there's self-help mechanisms. If life malfunctions, if inmates get sick, they don't go to the warden, they solve those problems themselves. How about this? Only in the Philippines, where inmates organize themselves into sports activities. They have their own uniforms, okay, have their own referees, okay. It's what we call empowerment. When I was visiting the maximum security compound, there's a big-time inmate there, probably you know Kalos, right? He was able to mobilize 2 million pesos for this project, okay? And he used it to construct the basketball court, tennis court, and of course his kubol inside maximum. And so inmates now maximize their contacts. Here is Miss Australia, okay, visiting one of our prisons. Okay? And in the Philippines, visitors are treated with respect. Security and order are maintained. This is very different when you visit American prisons. Doon naman, pagpasok mo bilang dalaw, tatakutin ka ng mga inmates. You will never feel secure as an outsider coming inside. In the Philippines, as our French visitors here have observed, okay, inmates are very respectful. Why? Visitors represent resources. Without the visitors, the economy will collapse. Okay, so here we have what we call venues for reformation. However, it has its negative effects. Okay? One would be perpetuation of inequality. If you are poor outside, you will also be poor inside. Second, okay, competition over political and economic resources. For example, this is the Bantay Pinto. Okay? Pag tiryado ka niya, hindi ka niya palalabasin. And so inmates would rot inside the cells for years pag mahina sila sa bantay nito. So what do they do? Sometimes they corrupt this prison guard, this bantay nito. Okay? And there's what we call culture of mendicancy. Kalabit penge, hihingi ng pera. Okay? And then corruption. Okay? So as long as mapagkakitaan, anything that will bring resources will be tolerated, like gambling, drugs, prostitution, and of course, corruption in every transaction. Okay? This has been improving in Quezon Quezon City Jail. Okay? The last time I visited, nababawasan na po ito. Pero sa ibang kulungan, it's still very prevalent. Pagpasok ka ng TV, 50 pesos. Pagpasok ka ng DVD, 100 pesos. Pagpasok ka ng alak, may patong po lahat. Everybody understands as long as you understand the international language, which is money. Okay? Corruption in every transaction. And now there's what we call low structural violence. Low regards for life, low regards for human rights. Why? Kasi kung ikaw ay walang pera, kung ikaw ay walang sinasabi sa loob ng kulungan, pwede kang isakripisyo ng pangkat mo, ng gang mo, para lang magbigay sila ng statement laban sa warden. So it's more of a structural violence. So, what's the prison culture like in the Philippines? Well, it's like an ordinary barangay system. See, it reflects the political, social, economic, cultural, and religious realities of the Philippines. So, halimbawa, ito si Commander Louie, okay? Hindi siya yung malaki na brusco, but he looks like an ordinary local government official. Okay? And here are all the trophies that they won during sports tournaments. And these are all religious icons. Okay? So it basically reflects the Philippine cultural system. And makikita mo, parang siyang mga squatters. So most jails, okay, the structures that they created are parang tabuti. Okay? They create new structures every now and then na parang mga squatters. And then, of course, they reflect the ethos of the squatters' colony. How about this? When I showed this picture to American audience, they couldn't believe it. A warden celebrating his birthday and inmates preparing a cake for him. Oh, wait a minute. Nawala na, naubusan na. Hindi ko pala nilagay ito. And so that picture is Warden, a good friend of mine, and he's well loved by him. I don't know if you know him, James Labordo. Okay, and when he retired from Quezon City Jail, the Quezon City Jail inmates threw him a very big party as a form of saying thank you to his service. Okay, American audience will not comprehend that phenomenon. Okay? How would an inmate say thank you to a warden who had been a source of their misery? In the Philippines, okay, ibang-iba po ang sistema po sa atin. Wait a minute, naubusan pala ako ng kuryente. Okay? In the Philippines, on the other hand, inmates have a very personalistic relationship. Okay? Inmates can become compadres with jail guards. Okay? Kapag ang inmate, nagkaroon mo ng anak habang nakakulong, ang mga jail guards po ang nagiging ninong po sa binyag. Kapag sila po ay kinakasal, yung warden po ang nagiging ninong nila sa kasal. Okay? And so the personal and the professional relationship is very blurred in Philippine corrections. Okay? Sana po bumalik ang kuryente ko. Okay lang po ba kayo? Buhay pa kayo? Are these things new to you or these are common knowledge? Very true? Okay. Actually, ito mga sinasabi ko, nakikita na natin ito sa news, di ba? These are not very new at all. Ang kailangan lang natin ngayon is we have to integrate these disparate findings into a holistic understanding. So, balik po tayo. Dito tayo warden. Okay? So, in the Philippines, okay, there is no inherent oppositional culture between inmates and prison officers. Okay? Hindi po sila magkalaban. Sa Amerika po, lagi po sila oppositional. They don't trust each other. Okay? Now, having all this as a product of 20-year engagement in prison research, okay, how are we going to integrate it? So, here is our structural condition. Okay? Inadequate facilities, okay? Lack of personnel quality and quantity, lack of operational resources, and we have these mega prison populations that are overcrowded. Okay? Because of these structural limitations, we have what we call these informal structures. The kubol, the kubo, mayores, marshals, trustees, volunteers, and inmate resources. Okay? Now, it affects what we call our organizational processes. Okay? So we have formal standards, rules, and regulations, pero mayroon din tayong informal rules and regulations at the same time. So, ang dalawang rule ang namamayagpag. And here, prison officers and inmate leaders code switch. Minsan nagpo-formal rule sila, minsan nag-informal rule sila. Okay? And this now depends on context. Okay? Which affects the third component, which is culture, ways of doing things. Okay? Cognitive narratives to justify behavior. For example, okay lang tumanggap ng pera mula sa inmate hanggang hindi naman ako humingi. Kumusta naman niya hindi ibigay? Ay, alam naman tanggihan mo. Right? It's okay to accept money to inmate as long as it's freely given. It's not extorted upon. Okay? For example, kubol. Lagi itong problema, right? If you hear the news, they made a big fuss about kubol. Okay? Why are there problems with kubol? Let's look at the structural conditions. Well, because it's lack of space. It's overcrowded. Anong gagawin ng inmate? Right? So, they are going to introduce a kubol. But since there are no clear rules on space acquisition, what happens now? Okay lang kumuha ang kubol ng inmate hanggat nakikinabang ang buong selda. Hanggat may kasama siya sa kubol. Okay? Hanggat siya lumaya, ipapamana niya sa iba. So it always starts as a humanitarian narrative. Later on, however, it gets abused and it becomes remunerative. Pera-pera na ang laban. And that's why you have hotel types amenities. Sobra-sobra, di ba? May jacuzzi pa nga eh. Have you heard of that? Mayroon ba siyang music video recording? Ito naman yan. Right? Para siyang 5-star hotel. Okay? Now, you have heard of the big-time mayores, like Carlos Post, right? Why do they lord it over inside the prisons? Why? Well, again, look at this. Structural condition, lack of custodial officers. And so the coping mechanism now is use of inmate leaders. However, there's no clear rules and regulations. Okay? There's no criteria. Okay? And since there's no criteria, okay lang gumamit ang ulan dahil nakakatulong sila. Dahil napapakinabangan namin ang kanilang talento. It always starts as a humanitarian narrative. After that, it becomes money-making. I'm going to appoint you as a mayor as long as you give me kickback. In Muntinlupa, they call it orbit. You know orbit? The sun orbiting the sun orbiting, that's right? Yung mga empleyado sa Muntinlupa, nag-orbit yan. Selda-selda, brigada-brigada. At pag nag-orbit siya, if they orbit you, that means you provide money. Okay? Or else, they will put you out as a mayor. Okay? So what happens now? The mayor becomes too big. They could buy off guards. And they become bigger than the guards themselves. Okay? Now, let's explain why our VIP inmates. Have you heard of this? Very important presence. Okay? One, again, lack of structural conditions, lack of resources. And so now inmates can bring their own things inside. Cooking materials, okay? Or electric fan. Eh, nagpasok ng aircon, ano na lang yan? Ang sabihin ng empleyado, okay, magpasok ko ng aircon, dalawahin mo. Yung isa mapunta sa'yo, yung isa sa office ko. Happy-happy tayo, di ba? Di ba? O, di malamig ka, malamig din sa akin. O, dapat install mo rin yun sa akin. Kaya kung may jacuzzi sa loob, tiyak ko, tatlong jacuzzi ang mga empleyado rin sa kanilang bahay. Ganun yun. Ganun ang lakaran sa loob. Pagpasok ko ng isang pundador sa akin. Yun ang patong mo. Okay? So, mayroon mga big time units. Okay? Now, medical pass. Alala nyo si Polanco, right? Saan pumunta si Polanco? Sa hospital. Big time. Insan si Leviste, nagpa-facial. Right? You remember that? Why do those things happen? Why? Well, there's inefficient medical personnel, lack of facilities and equipment. Okay? Then we have unclear rules and medical passes, emergency cases. Then, okay lang lumabas dahil may sakit. It always starts as a humanitarian consideration. Pag nakalabas na, babayaran niyo yung escort, eh di pati si Starlet, mabibisitan na niya. Right? Do you remember that case? Okay, si Burato, lumabas. Okay, he met this Starlet, tagunwari, pinabentahan siya ng condominium. Hindi, pipili ng condo. Right? Doesn't make sense. Okay? Those happen because of this. Okay? Pero ano nakikita natin? We only see this. Okay? Without seeing this, the structural roots of the problem. And kahit na itapon natin ang prison guard who allow this to happen, that prison guard will always say, okay, floating ako, masaya ako, kasi tumatanggap ko ng pera kahit wala akong trabaho. But the problem will still remain. Okay, so here's my theoretical understanding. I have some animations here. Let's see if it works. This is supposedly the standard, the minimum standard for the treatment of inmates. Okay, ito po, this level. Unfortunately, the reality is we are way below. Okay, masyadong siksikan, masyadong walang medisina. We don't have any medicines at all. So this is the gap. In fact, the government can be sued because of negligence, abuse. Okay? The government that kills inmates systematically because of lack of medical support should be held accountable. Right? But we don't have that. Inmates are powerless. And so this is what happens. Okay? Look. A common mechanism is to improve your physical condition. Now, this is the discretionary part. Okay? If it is for humanitarian only, okay, and it's within acceptable limits, this one, because it's standard na, masyadong siksikan, pasok ka ng electric fan para makahinga kahit paano. And if there's a written rule about that, it becomes legal as well. Wala sanang problema dyan, right? Right or wrong? Okay lang ba magpasok ang isang inmate ng electric fan dahil naghihinang-alok na siya dahil walang hangin sa loob ng selda? Is it okay? What do you think? American standard says no. Filipino standard says yes. Right? Now, the problem is this. Okay? Many considerations. But, ito, within limits, those are the prison guards and jail guards who are security staff. They protect their back. Tumatanggal sigurista ang tawag dyan. Ito ang mga jail guards na magaling, mga prison guards na magaling. Okay? Hindi sila mahuhuli, pero kumakabig sila. Yan ang idol ng mga Indiano. Now, here is the problem. Okay? Paano kung sumobra sa standard? Okay? Again, there's two parts. If it's humanitarian considerations only, hindi naman pera-pera, negligent ka rin. Nautakas ka ng inmate. Okay? The former superintendent of the maximum happened yung ganitong scenario. Inalaw niya ng inalaw kasi sa sobrang pagmamahal niya sa inmate, hindi niya lang, inabuso naman siya ng inmate, nakapasok ang jacuzzi. Okay? Now, for most jail guards and prison guards, this is what they consider as abuse. If it's money consideration and beyond limits, even jail guards hate this kind of people. Kasi mayroon naman silang code of ethics. Right? This one is acceptable. The number 2 is acceptable. But number 4 is not. However, mayroon pa rin gumagawa niyan. Okay? So, if you look at it, ilang porsyento ng inmates ang who experience this? What percentage of inmates? Okay? If you look at it, very few, probably only 3 to 5% of the inmates are way standard, beyond standard. Okay? In fact, the jacuzzi, out of 40,000 inmates in maximum, probably 1 or 2 people only had that jacuzzi. Unfortunately, it's that what's the media popularized. Yun ang napipick up ng media, and so now it provides this idea na lahat ng inmates na big time ay may jacuzzi sa loob, which now distorts the problem. Okay? So what we need is a holistic analysis that integrates the structural, the organizational, and cultural components. Okay? So, if you look at the new deleted prisons, it's one of the most convoluted, most malintegrated, most, what I call these diffuse forms of correctional management. In what way that happened? Look at this. They have the RTC, which is the reception and diagnostic center. Okay? They have the maximum, medium, minimum, and colonies. Okay? These are the distant penal farms. Okay? In fact, it's the maximum now, which has all the maximum comfort. Okay? Whereas the minimum, supposedly, okay, they are the minimum risk, they have the most restrictions. In fact, most officers would like to be transferred to the maximum. Why? Dahil dito may pera. They make a lot of money here in the maximum security compound. They don't like to be transferred in minimum or medium. In fact, they call this place Desierto, Tantuyon. Okay? And so, we have a very convoluted prison system. It's a wrong way of managing the prisons. Okay? So, all our hardened criminals are here in the maximum, enjoying all the benefits. They have Facebook accounts, they have internet, they have anything that you could think of. They have drugs, they have tilapia. You know what tilapia is? Prostitutes. Code word for tilapia is prostitutes. Okay? They are all here. So I'm going to organize a visit to maximum security prison next week. Who's coming with me? Wala? Okay. You're coming with me. Okay? And all of these, lack of documentation and lack of assessment. So let's summarize what we know. absence of an overall correctional strategy, it's fractured independent republics according to Director Buhayo. Okay? The reformation, people don't talk with the security don't talk with administration, day-to-day management, okay? Managing by Gulilyaso. Okay? If there's a riot here, they manage that. Next day, there's another problem. Okay? Prison guards are victims, yet victimizers at the same time. And unfortunately for them, takaw asunto sila. They have one of the most insecure jobs. Why? Kahit wala silang kasalanan, sila ang magtututukan. Okay? Kung inmate tumakas, kahit naman Superman sila, dahil yung fasilidad, pangit, sila pa rin ang mananagot. Hunyano. Have you heard of this? Hunyano. Okay? They change color. Pag-kausap nila, napakabait. Pag talikod, iba. If they speak the language of reform, anti-corruption sila. Pag katalikod, iba. Okay? In fact, so many trainings they have undergone, they know the language of reform. But the reality of the situation forces them to adapt their situation. And they are very cynical about reforms. Okay? Especially in the Bucor where the leadership changes every 2 years. So, sabihin nyo, it's so daunting to hear these stories, right? Could we do anything? Okay? If I am here just to document all the negative things about Bucor, then I have failed. Okay? I want these conditions transformed. Okay? And I've been using my 20-year experience and my 7-year incarceration to rally the truth. Hey, we deserve something better. Right? We have to do something. And so now I'm going to transform myself from a researcher to an advocate. Okay? So what can we do? What will be the social innovation? But here, a social innovation based on empirical evidence. Okay? So what's the social innovation? So given these realities, what can be done to improve corrections? First, we need to have what we call an integrated approach. Okay? Hindi pwedeng BGMP, Bucor lang ang aayusin natin. It has to include the police, the courts, the legal system, okay? Because all these are part and parcel of the process. Secondly, the reform should be theory-based, okay? We cannot just come into a prison and say, tanggalin natin sa ganito kasi, or introduce natin yung pag-dancing inmate tayo. No, the reform should be theory-based. That's what's lacking, okay? We don't have a theory that guides our intervention, okay? Third is, it should be based on evidence. Okay? We need to gather data to support our intervention. Fourth, intervention should be participatory. It should not be coming from above and just imposed from below, especially in the Philippines. Okay? We need to hear the voices of those people we want to reform. It should be multi-directional, meaning to say it should come from the top, but it has also to come from below. It has to come from the sides and all over. Okay? It should be multi-agency and it should be multi-level. Meaning to say it should change the individual, the departmental, the organizational, and the societal levels. Okay? So all of these must be integrated. In the context of the Philippines, it should also be culturally sensitive. Ibang Pinoy madamdamin ang Pinoy. Okay? Hindi mo pwede kalimutan ang kanyang kaloobin, ang kanyang saloobin. Okay? You have to respect ang kanyang collective mentality. Okay? And it should be cognizant of resource limitations. Okay? So many innovations are very good. However, wala namang pondo. How can you make those innovations our mindset. We have to introduce innovations that basically recognizes the limitation of budget and work from there. Posible ba ito? Is this possible? Okay. So here I'm going to introduce a program that I've been developing the past 3 years and doing research on it that tries to overcome the problems I identified and basically coming up with a new paradigm, a new way of corrections, okay? Which is based on 4 principles. 1, effective classification. 2, housing placement, which is based on a risk criteria. 3, inmate programming, which is based on a needs criteria. And 4, documentation and assessment, which is based on responsiveness criteria. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Napakasimple lang. Okay? Dapat lahat ng inmates, okay, pagpasok sa kulungan, makilala natin sila. We should know them. Okay? There should be a scientific criteria of classifying inmates based on professional judgment. Okay? And we have 3 simple criteria for these: risk, needs, and responsibility. Okay? Once you classify these inmates, now, isa-segregate mo sila. This is the problem in the Philippines. We don't have an effective segregation system. Si kidnapper, kasama niya sa selda, si kidnapper, si rapist, si snatcher. Paglaya, they contaminate each other. Okay? And so here we need to have security levels and match up our privileges and inmate movement. Yung maximum, dapat 24 hours, hindi yan nakalabwa. Ang problema ngayon, yung maximum natin, nakakadalaw sila kahit anong oras sa gabi. Okay? We need to have an inmate residential plan. Now, after classifying and housing them, there should be what we call integrated programming. Okay? And here there should be an inmate rehabilitation plan and a plan for what we call shared governance. Inmates should be utilized properly in the reformation of other inmates. In the Philippine model, that can work. Okay? And then, of course, you need to document all of this. So you need to know their institutional behavior and responsibility to treatment, so that you will have a basis for effective reclassification and release. So, in a nutshell, ito yung classification system mo, okay, which now translates into your housing plan. Okay? So, dapat matino siya from Supermax to secondary level 3, 2, 1, low security at yung papalaya na. Okay? And all of these have their corresponding form of programs, okay, which are easy to modularize, which now translates to your effective documentation and assessment. This is a very simple social innovation that we could introduce in our correctional system, which will not require much funding. It will just need to tweak our way of doing things. Okay? Now compare this to our disconvoluted correctional practice that I described a while ago. This is how it looks. So, in order to make this work, I need prerequisites for change. Okay? One, you have to have structural change, which requires you to become an advocate. Two, you need to have an organizational change, which requires capacity building. And third is you need to have a cultural change, which you need to have a cognitive change. Okay? And again, this should be multi-component, long-term, and empirically validated. So, if you are going to introduce these, there should be a training component, right? So, dito na mahalaga. Ang sabi nga ni ASEC, dapat hindi ordinary training lang, another one of those trainings. So, education of key stakeholders is a key. You have to introduce them the ideas and concepts. And after that, you need to have be experimental or quasi-experimental. Okay? There will be an experimental versus control or comparison group. There should be random assignment, or if not, matching. And you should have baseline indicators and collect data in time 1, time 2, probably 6 months, and time 3, probably a year. And then you have to meet the conduct needs, process, outcome, and impact evaluations. So how will it look like? Ganito po. So this is your random assignment. Okay? There's an experimental group versus a control group. For example, let's say a jail. Yun po ang ating experimental group. And then we'll find another jail na kaparehas niya na magiging control group. And then you have your baseline data, collect baseline information, and then you introduce your intervention to the experimental group. And of course, there will be no intervention in the control group, and then monitor it in time 2. Okay? So these are your basic experimental design. Para masigurado natin na yung ating intervention will work. Okay? Which now translates into what we call evidence-based advocacy. There should always be a theory. Okay? The theory now will translate into your social innovation. Okay? Tulad po ng nabagay ko kanina. Which now your social innovation translates into training. So the training should be based on the social innovation that you are about to introduce. Okay? And this training now translates into action. Okay? You implement this, which now should guide your research. Okay? And then this research, okay, should basically inform your theory. So you research more, it should improve your theory. Now, if your theory is correct, your social innovation may be wrong. And so your research now should improve your social innovation. Okay? Now, your social innovation may be correct, but the training procedures may be wrong based on your research. Probably, pangit ang pagka-training. So you need to tweak your training. Or, your theory may be correct, your social innovation may be correct, your training may be correct, but the way it was implemented was wrong. Okay? And so we have to tweak your implementation. And so here, it becomes holistic. Okay? So it becomes integrated. And you know whether your innovation works or not. And then, of course, you need to conduct your needs, your process, your outcome, and impact evaluations. So that's just one area of intervention that we can introduce. So one final leg is, so what's the visions for the future? Okay. Hopefully, in the future, we could come up with a Center for Criminal Justice Studies. Okay. That studies areas about the police, the courts, corrections, and the communities. Okay. And we should be what we call incubators of social innovations. Tayo ang mag-introduce na social innovation that are theoretically grounded. Okay. With strong theoretical component. Okay. Cutting-edge research because we do monitoring and evaluations. Okay. And mayroon tayong strong graduate education which will now complement all those research that we conduct. And we could mentors to other research institutions based on this graduate study. And then finally, we could be leader in extension services. And we could be what we call international research scholars based in the Philippines. Okay? Which basically leads back to a just, peaceful, loving, and humane society. So, all in all, this is the research agenda. Okay? We could start small, but grow bigger. We could start in one jail, one locality, one community at a time. And I'm here to offer my services, my expertise, and could help all help grow from this experience. Okay? So thank you very much.